Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. All right, episode 104. That's right, 104 episodes of Coach Bennett's podcast. And yes, there was a few little special ones. So on a technicality, this is beyond episode 104. But for naming purposes, this is in fact episode 104. And I think this is going to be 5 ways, maybe 7 ways. I'm not sure yet. The point is, it's 5 ways, 7 ways, could be 6 ways, could be 9 ways. I don't really know, to make your summer running better. Yeah. And the cool thing here is that this is May. And I know we have a lot of listeners that live in parts of the world where they're not getting ready to enter summer months, classical summer months where it's warmer. They're actually heading into periods of time where it's colder. But guess what? Here's something you can listen to now and then listen to again when it's time to listen to. All right? So just sit back and enjoy it. Now, this was going to be actually named like 5, 6, 10 ways, I don't know, to make summer running suck or worse. Because I thought, that's a fun way of maybe doing it, is saying like, here's a whole bunch of things you can do to make your summer running worse or terrible or miserable. And in some ways, knowing what you shouldn't do is figuring out what to do, right? So I thought that might be a fun twist, but you know what? I'm not going to play games. We're just going to talk about how you can make your summer running better. Now, I'm starting with goals, but this is going to be my twist for you, all right? One of the goals you should think about is having no goal. And what I mean by that is you don't have to head into summer thinking, I want to run a certain amount of miles, or I want to run a certain pace for 5K by the end of the summer, or I've signed up for a marathon. Now, all of those things are awesome, and I love goals, but there is going to be a large segment of you that maybe isn't interested in getting faster in a certain race, or isn't interested in accumulating a certain volume of minutes, meters, and miles, or preparing for a fall marathon or half marathon or 5K, whatever it may be. That's great. Let me speak to you first. You don't have to have a specific goal for the summer. You could have as the goal that you have no big, giant goal. It could just be something new every single day. It could be the fact that you do runs that you want to do, that your summer goal is to just enjoy running. So are these goals? Yes. Are they specific about what you need to do, what you must do? Is it a template you need to follow? Is it a training plan that you have to be checking off boxes? No. So yes, it may be a goal, but maybe it's a different kind of goal. I just wanted to start with that because I love goals. I think they give purpose. I think they give meaning. But I also think goals can give you flexibility. And we're going to talk about flexibility later. But in this way, I think it gives you flexibility of why are you running? It doesn't always have to be so serious. Sometimes it can be serious. It can be anything you want. Too many of us run and think it has to be something formulaic, or what the rest of the group is doing, or maybe what you've already done. It needs to be almost like a spin-off of what you did last summer or this spring. It doesn't. It doesn't need to be any of that. You can show up every day and just say, you know what? My goal for the summer is every day I show up and I decide, what am I in the mood to do? Yeah, it can be that much. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast or you've been running for a while and you know how to navigate, what it means to make good decisions about running, right? Then that's a fine goal, because you're not going to set yourself up to have something bad happen, like an injury. And if you're just paying attention to your body, if you're just listening to your body, what's going to happen is, yeah, you may do a couple hard things in a row because guess what? Why not? You're having fun. But eventually, if you're listening to your body, you're going to realize, okay, I may be in the mood to do something hard again today for the third day in a row, but I'm going to listen to my body. My body is a partner in this, body and mind. Those are partners on the run. And my body is telling my mind, listen, you may be up for another hard effort, but I'm not. So respect me, y'all. Respect me. And then if you respect your body, if you respect your mind, you're going to keep showing up at starting lines. Oh my gosh, that rhymed. That rhymed. I just got to remember when I'm editing this to figure out what exactly I just said. But whatever I just said, it rhymed. And I think it was impactful. I think it was. I don't know. Sometimes you just say stuff and then afterwards you're like, that was actually pretty good. And sometimes you think what was really good. When you hear it again, you're like, wow, that was really stupid. But anyway, moving on. So when it comes to goals, I love them. I think they're great. Just open yourself up to the possibility that the typical goals, the more common goals, may not be the right goals for you right now. Here's another thing. You could get halfway through the summer and realize, you know what, you actually do want to add certain type of goals, those classic goals. Like now suddenly maybe you do want to run a fast 5K, but maybe you want to run a fast 5K and you don't want to follow a training plan. You just want to wing it. That's okay too. Listen to your mind, listen to your body, and you're going to have some fun this summer, okay? Now, there are other goals that you could take on. Like I said, the classic ones. I don't think I need to browbeat anybody about those. You know what they are, all right? It could be developing consistency. It could be getting faster. But it could also be some of those other goals that I mentioned that are not so common, right? It could be something like having fun, mixing things up. It could be putting yourself out there, running with groups more, or exploring more of your city. It could be whatever you want. So have some fun with that aspect of it, because if you bring that in, the idea of goals, big, small, in between, weird, wild, typical, classic, any kind of goal you want, you're going to have a better summer of running. All right, another one is just figuring out when you're going to run. And this doesn't have to be mapped out way ahead of time, but if your schedule demands it, I would highly recommend you pay attention to not just your schedule, but also the weather. So if I just focus here on places where the extreme weather is possible, and where I am, that would be heat, not so much humidity. But when I go back east, there's the possibility of having both heat and humidity. So I need to be aware of when I'm able to run and what the temperatures are going to be, what the humidity is going to be, what the conditions are going to be. Pay attention to your environment. Pay attention to the environment. If you do that, you're going to have a better summer of running. I talk to people all the time that tell me they really struggle in the summer. And I say, what about? And they'll mention the weather. And I'll say, yeah, I get it. Tell me a little bit about your running. And they'll say, well, usually right when I get off work or when I get out of school, I get my run in. And I say, okay, what time are we talking about? And a lot of times they'll tell me 2, 3, 4 p.m. Now, here's the thing. If that's the only time you can run, okay, we can have a conversation about that. But if there is flexibility on when you can run, which, again, doesn't mean you're going to be running at the time that's easiest for you. It just may be the time to have the easiest time running. So those are not always the same things. They don't always match up. The easiest time for you may not be the best time to have a run. It may be, hey, right when I get off work, right when I get out of school, that's where the momentum is, or right when I'm able to drop off the kids, whatever, 2, 3, 4 p.m. Well, that's the hottest part of the day. Now, on certain days, maybe you can get away with that. But on those days where you can't, or maybe you live in an environment where you can't run between 2, 3, and 4, or I should say, you shouldn't run between 2, 3, and 4, then plan ahead. And like I said, it may not be the easiest time, but it's going to be beneficial. And if you start developing the habit of running at the best time and realizing you're having better runs as a result, you're going to find a consistency that comes from the betterment that you're experiencing. And I'm not just the betterment as a runner, just the betterment of the runs, you're going to see that you're enjoying your runs more. You're going to see that you're progressing better. You're going to see that you're recovering more just from changing when you run. If you live in a place that's really hot, obviously the coolest part of the day is right before sunrise. So if you can run around that time, that's when you're going to be running the coolest part of the day. The sun, usually strongest around noon, but the hottest part of the day is that 2, 3, 4 p.m. hours. Just having the shade is going to take some of that intensity that comes with the radiation from the sun, but just remember, it's not going to change the temperature. So there are different things you can do to alleviate the intensity of the heat, the sun, the humidity, but just know there's only so much you can do if you're going to be running outside. But when is one of those things you can do? The time of day, your schedule, that's one of the things you can do. And if you can wrap your head around that and you can make your schedule work for you or have your runs work within your schedule, which means you may need to change your classic schedule, you're going to have better runs. You just are. And I'll tell you this, the difference between running at 4 p.m. on an extremely hot and humid day and going out there and doing your 40-minute run and doing it before sunrise, where there could be potentially 20, 30, 40-degree difference in temperatures. I'm using Fahrenheit right now. And significant difference in humidity, which means the heat index is going to be different. You're going to find, one, the run is better. Just in general, the experience is better, but the quality of the run is better. And how much you need to recover from that run is far less if you're doing it right before sunrise or if you're waiting until the sun has set, the temperatures have dropped. You're going to need to recover less from those runs than if you had tried to do that same run during those worst hours of 2, 3, 4 p.m. Or like I said, noon, where maybe it's not as hot as it's going to be in a few hours, but the sun's going to be stronger. And the sun does damage, okay? So make sure you are protecting yourself with clothing and also with sunscreen, okay? Make sure you're getting that on your body, all right? You need to protect yourself. Now, another thing you can do to kind of help, which kind of goes with this, is get wet. Oh yeah, get wet. Now, what I mean by that, most people assume is, drink fluids, which I do, absolutely. Stay hydrated. That's obvious, right? And the best way to stay hydrated on a run is to be hydrated before the run, and then make sure you have access to fluids on the run, and then make sure you're rehydrating after the run. So that's one thing. The other thing is literally getting wet, getting water on you. This is very, very important, I think, during those hot days. Most athletes think it's like extra bonus points if you don't stop to get water. Like, what are you talking about? You stop for 15, 25 seconds and you get some water on you and in you. This is what's going to happen. The quality of the run is going to be better. The mental and physical fatigue will be less if you're doing that. I'll give you a little trick, and I think I've mentioned this just about every summer, whether it's speaking at clinics or doing Zoom calls with teams and coaches or on this podcast or even on some of the guided runs that I've done, writing in the newsletter. I tell people that when I'm back home in Jersey on very hot days, if I have to run during this just a hot part of the day, I'll run on the boardwalk. Now, the reason why is because like every quarter mile, there's a shower on the boardwalk. So what I'll do is, let's say I'm running for, let's just make it up, 40 minutes. I'll say, about every 7 minutes or so, I'm going to stop for about 10 seconds, and I'm going to blast one of the showers. They're right there, right alongside the boardwalk. I don't have to leave the boardwalk. I just go over towards the railing. I push down on the faucet. I get shocked with a blast of cold water. I open my mouth. I get some of that water inside, and then I go run. Now, this is what's happened. I've cooled myself down a little bit. Mentally and physically, I've cooled myself down a little bit. So it's almost like I'm in air conditioning for a brief period of time. Now it's hot. I'm going to dry off. So, 4 minutes later, I realize like, okay, it's kind of wearing off. By 5-6 minutes, I'm like, it's hot again. Well, guess what? I'm stopping every 7 minutes. I can see another shower a minute down the boardwalk. So it's a lifeline. It's like an oasis. And I get there. What do? 10, 15 seconds. I blast it. Suddenly, this run that without these stops, without these pit stops, which are not negatively affecting me in any way from a physical standpoint, they're making this run seem less intensive from a physical standpoint, less intensive from a mental and mindful standpoint. The recovery is going to be less than if I had not taken these breaks, and the quality of my run improves because in between these little 10, 15 second water breaks, my pace is better. I'm running more powerfully. I feel stronger. I'm developing greater confidence. I'm not suffering as much. This idea that you have to suffer all the time, it's so stupid. There are times where, yes, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. Yes, you could make the case that there are times when you're supposed to be suffering a little bit, not in a painful way. Okay, there's a difference between something being really hard and painful. Okay, that's not what we're going into. All right, you slow down. You get more tense. You get less efficient when you're dealing with pain, when you're trying to give a great performance. You can work really hard and you can struggle and still give a great performance. Okay, so just be aware of that. But this idea that if I just make it harder, then I'm going to get more benefit. No, especially on runs that aren't supposed to be a massive struggle, that aren't supposed to be a sufferfest. That's just dumb to say, hey, it's really hot. I'm going to go do my easy run and I'm going to make it as difficult as possible. That's just stupid. It's just really bad coaching. So you're either a very ignorant runner or you're just a really crappy coach. You can decide. Or you can actually not do those things and you can be a better runner and a better coach. Again, up to you. The choice is always yours. Now, I'm going to bring up something that can make your summer running better, because I'm not saying to do it all the time unless you're in a situation where you have to do it all the time. And for those of you that have to do it all the time, respect yourself, because it ain't easy. And that's use a treadmill. Yes, I know. There's so many people like, nope, I'm not going to do it. Well, if you want to go for a run and the option is go outside at 3 p.m. in Phoenix when it's 116, or hop on a treadmill, hop on the treadmill. Go back to the thing I was just saying about making things hard for no reason. It's just stupidity. Just get on a treadmill in a climate-controlled room and have a great run. Isn't the purpose to get better? Now, you can challenge yourself. That's fine. But putting yourself in a dangerous situation is not challenging yourself. That's disrespecting yourself. So take advantage, if you have the advantage of a treadmill. Take advantage of it. Yes, take advantage of the advantage. Believe me, you can get worked on a treadmill. You can play with that elevation. You can play with the pace. You can work really hard and you can be thinking, you know what, this is a pace I could run consistently. I can give an intense effort here in this climate-controlled room on this treadmill that I could not give outside. Do not diminish the value of a treadmill when the value of a run done outside only diminishes you as an athlete. Because I'll tell you what, if you go outside and you're trying to do a really hard effort in extreme conditions, you're not getting better. There's the concept of the law of diminishing returns, but you have to remember in running, like, you can go negative. It's a very important concept. A lot of times people think like, well, you just keep having lower and lower returns, but that can never reach zero. You can just keep cutting that number in half if you want to, and it's never going to reach zero. So you're not going to go negative. But in running, it's different. You keep increasing intensity. You keep increasing volume. You keep increasing efforts. Eventually, you will go zero, and you will actually get worse and worse and worse the more you do. So don't think that it's this easy algebra where it's like this plus this plus this equals more. No, sometimes this plus this plus this equals less. All right? Remember that. So take advantage of a treadmill if you got a treadmill. Now here's another one. This is going to take some thought for some of you. Stop running with the wrong people. Okay? Stop running with the wrong people. Or we can make this a little bit more positive. Start running with the right people. Who are the people in your life that make running enjoyable? Who are the people in your life that not only make running enjoyable, but also the people that make you a better runner? Because here's the thing, it doesn't always line up the way where the people that you love to run with also make you a better runner. Sometimes you can be running with people that they're a blast to run with. They're not at the same fitness level as you. So not every run should be run with those people. And vice versa, right? I mean, because if you're a great teammate, you want those teammates to get better too. So I want you to think long and hard about this. Who are the best people for you to run with? And maybe it's different people on different days, depending on the different purposes of the run. Maybe there's a group of people that when you want to go and have an easy run and have some fun, this is the best group for me. It could be a very different group of people that when you say, hey, I got to do a long run, or I got to do a tempo run, or I got to do a hard effort, these are the best people for me to be running with. It could be a group of people that, it has to do with where you're running. It's up to you. But think about it. Who are the best people for you to run with, and start running with them as often as you can when it makes sense for you to run with them. All right? And I think what you'll find is it's easier to cross the starting line when you're crossing it with someone else. Maybe that's not always the case. But remember, we're coming up with a lot of different ideas. And if you can bring all of this into your summer running, you're going to find that all of your summer running is getting better. It's never one thing that gets you better in running. That's an important thing to remember. It's never one thing that gets you better at running. But it could be one thing that gets you worse at running. Isn't that weird how that works? But that's the way it works. So whatever. So stop running with the wrong people, or just start running with the right people. Now, this is something that I've kind of, I don't know, maybe it's tracing itself through, or it's the thread that you can kind of trace through this entire conversation, but make it easier. Find places to make your running easier. I've, again, alluded to this throughout this podcast, but it's a really important principle, and it's going to take some confidence from you. It's going to take some creativity from you as well, because we are so just focused from years and years and years of hearing the only way to get better is to do more intensity, be more hardcore. Yeah, I get it, but in doing these things, look for ways to make it easier. This doesn't negate any of the hard work you're doing. What I'm saying is, if you're supposed to do something and it's supposed to be easy, find things that are not making it easy and cut them out. If you're supposed to be doing something that's hard, awesome. But if you have things that are making it harder than it's supposed to be, cut them out. Change what you're doing if what you're doing is making things harder than they're supposed to be. So remember, I'm not saying that if you have a tempo run planned, don't do it because it's hard. What I'm saying is, if you have a tempo run planned, if you have the chance to do it before sunrise, after sunset, as opposed to at 3 p.m., that would be a case of making something that's already hard not harder than it needs to be. If you have a chance to do your run on the boardwalk where there's water, or in your neighborhood where there's access to no water, do it on the boardwalk and have access to water. Maybe you have an ability to do a loop where you can put a couple bottles of water there. So every time you do the loop, so you're getting water in and on you. That's not changing the fact that the run is going to be as hard as it's supposed to be, or as easy as it's supposed to be. What you're making sure is you're not making it harder than it's supposed to be. You get no bonus points in training for doing things harder than they're supposed to be. It makes no sense. It's like if you have reading for school and your teacher says, what I want you to do is I want you to read 30 pages in this book. And you say, you know what I'm going to do? I normally wear glasses, but I'm going to read without my glasses on, and I'm going to dim all the lights in the room. So it's really, really hard to read. What? Why would you do that? Well, because it's harder. And nothing. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. So that's all I'm trying to say. All right. My last one should be no surprise. That's have some fun. Have some fun. Really. Find ways you can inject fun into your summer running. Listen, it's not easy to run consistently at any time of the year. And sometimes we think because in many places, maybe the weather's more conducive to running in the summer. And in some places, maybe it's not. So this actually fits for both. But for the people who are maybe in a place where the weather's nicer, we put all this pressure on ourselves that we should be able to take advantage of it. And suddenly it becomes like really serious. Like we have to take advantage of this part of the year because the rest of the year kind of sucks when it comes to weather. So, and we rob ourselves of the fun, as opposed to saying like, hey, the weather's really great. How can I make this enjoyable? Are there different places to run, different people I can run with, different goals I can have, different types of runs I can do? Can I mix things up? Can I set kind of some crazy goals? Can I set some weird goals? Can I investigate different types of running? Can I put myself in new situations? Can I revisit old runs I've done? Are there other goals that maybe it's time to dust off, or some goals that are becoming like an albatross and I need to just bury? Like this is what you can do to try to make it more fun. And going back to, when I say try to make things easier, that doesn't mean don't do hard things. It's the opposite. It's actually do the hard things. Don't make them harder than they're supposed to be. When I say make things fun, a lot of times people think that means, well, you can't do hard things, which I think is crap. To me, I think in many ways the hardest things we do in this sport are the most fun. But the reason why I think that is because I have a better attitude about the hard things, and I make sure that if I'm doing something hard, it's hard for the right reasons. Because if I'm struggling out there on a tempo run or some intervals or a very hilly run, I'm supposed to be. So I'm not mocking myself. I'm not tearing myself down. I'm not telling myself I suck at running when I'm struggling running up a very steep hill or I'm in the midst of a tough interval workout. I'm supposed to be struggling. We get into trouble when we do things and they don't turn out the way we thought they should, we believe they should. And a lot of times, what we do is we put ourselves in bad positions, tough situations, and then what's supposed to be easy or supposed to be this hard is way, way harder. And what we think is there's something wrong with us and not the situation. It's not the fact that it's 3 p.m., 96 degrees Fahrenheit, and humid. That's not to blame. It's me. I'm soft. And as you can imagine, that doesn't help. It doesn't bring us back to the starting line motivated. It doesn't inspire us. It doesn't build confidence. It doesn't breed an affinity for this sport, which is really what you want. You want to fall in love with it, but we can self-sabotage ourselves. We can ruin the relationship. And I'll tell you what, one thing you can do is just try to play running. Bring the fun back into the run, and you're going to have a better summer of running, okay? That's what I'm trying to tell you. And I think I just did tell you. So there it is. I don't know how many that was. I think I'm just going to call this 7 ways to make your summer running better. And maybe there were 7 ways. Maybe there were 5 or 6. Maybe there were 8 or 9. I don't know. I'm not going to count. Even when I edit this, I'm not going to pay attention. Because you know what? I don't think any of you are counting or paying attention either. So you can prove me wrong and say, actually, you had 6 or you had 9. But I don't think I'm going to get too many of those messages. So there you have it. All right. Well, what are you doing here? Go get going. Have a better summer of running. And thank you for listening. And thank you for subscribing or following to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening. Thank you for rating and reviewing it. Please rate and review. Please rate and review. I'm going to say it one more time, 3 times total. Please rate and review the podcast. And keep sharing it with your friends, family, and teammates. Lastly, thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for running. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll meet you on another starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you haven't already subscribed or set yourself as a follower to the podcast, I really hope you would. And make sure you check out the show notes, because in those show notes, you're going to find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter and all the social media sites I'm on, like Instagram and Threads and Cameo and Blue Sky and Nope, not on that one anymore. So all the ones I am on, you're going to find it in the show notes, so check that out as well. And as always, thank you again for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast. Until next time, you keep taking care of yourself and each other.